We are really grateful that you have taken the time out of your busy day to join today's panel. Reframe and Refresh is our monthly series on for the education, filmmaking, and library communities to have these refreshing conversations that reframe our perspectives. If you are not familiar with New Day, I'd like to tell you just a little bit more about New Day Films. New Day Films has been around for quite a while. We are a unique filmmaker-run distribution company that's been providing social issue documentaries to educators since 1971. We're democratically run by more than 100 filmmaker members, and New Day is committed to reflecting greater diversity, representation, and inclusion. New Day films have been broadcast on PBS, HBO, among other media outlets, and we're celebrating over 50 years of delivering dynamic and provocative storytelling with filmmakers who have won hundreds of awards, including Emmys and Oscars. And this is just a slight little brag. One of our New Day filmmakers, S. Leo Chang's Island in Between, is actually up for this year's Oscar for Best Documentary Short. So we are in great company with New Day filmmakers. All right, before I introduce our panelists, let me just set the table with some housekeeping items. We would appreciate if you keep yourselves on mute. We will have some time for Q&A questions during the session, and please utilize the chat box. Feel free to ask questions along the way. You don't have to necessarily wait till the very end. You can enter them in as you think of them. And please be courteous in our chat box. We want to create a positive and affirming environment for everyone here. And today's discussion is not meant to be an exhaustive one about hidden legacies in Black history. That could fill a whole year of conversation, as we know. But in the limited time that we have, we hope to catalyze more conversation and spur even more learning beyond today. And so let me get to introducing our amazing panel of speakers. I'm going to start with Rodney. Rodney Evans is a fiction and documentary filmmaker whose debut fiction feature, Brother to Brother, that we'll be highlighting here today, won the Sundance Special Jury Prize in Drama. It garnered 4 Independent Spirit Award nominations, including Best Debut Performance for Anthony Mackie. His latest feature-length film, Vision Portraits, had its world premiere at South by Southwest in 2019 and won Best Documentary at Frameline, the San Francisco International LGBTQ Film Festival. It was released theatrically to universal critical acclaim in major cities. And Rodney is also the 2020 Sundance Momentum Fellow. He was a 2021 Ford Mellon Disabilities Futures Fellow and an NEH Firelight Media Spark Fund recipient for 2022. And so we are delighted to have Rodney here today. And we're going to give you a little taste of Brother to Brother by showing the trailer, which follows the emotional psychological journey of a young Black gay artist played by Anthony Mackie, pre-Captain America, as he discovers the hidden legacies of the gay and lesbian subcultures within the Harlem Renaissance. This is Brother to Brother.
Boy stepping out to his Soho debut.
Please. See, this anger you feeling towards white people is the same anger brothers feel towards me for being gay.
Well, how'd someone like you end up sleeping in a shelter?
You know, a respected published writer of the Harlem Renaissance.
If he wrote about being gay in that time, respect was the last thing he was going to get.
You think he's for real?
What do you mean?
I mean, he could just be a nut job with a really vivid imagination.
He's for real, all right.
Look at you. An old man like me is game for a little adventure. You should be too.
This is what proper Negroes do with trash like you.
Oh! Who do you think you are?
I guess some things never change.
You got that right.
And we will talk more with Rodney about this groundbreaking film in a moment. Up next, I want to introduce Dyana Winkler and Tiffany Fisher-Love. Dyana was one of Variety's 2019 top filmmakers to watch. She's an Emmy-nominated filmmaker straddling the worlds of both fiction and documentary. Her feature documentary, United Skates, which we will discuss here today, she wrote, directed, and produced and screened at over 140 film festivals and won 15 Best Documentary and Audience Awards, including the world premiere at Tribeca Film Festival. Winkler's screenplays have participated in the Sundance Screenwriters Lab, IFP Gotham, and many more. She is originally from Hawaii, and Winkler currently lives and works in Los Angeles. Welcome to Dyana. And also with her is Tiffany Fisher-Love. She is a Brooklyn-based producer and co-producer of United Skates. She is currently working as the producer for the feature documentary Storming and feature narrative Hawaiian Vacation. With a background in digital media, she has worked with Upworthy, Brute, Peoria, and many more to distribute educational and impactful content for scale for more than a decade. And Tiffany was a 2021 Film Independent Documentary Fellow and a 2022 Sundance Producer Intensive Fellow. So let's take a look now at United Skates, which was executive produced by John Legend and premiered on HBO. It's about America's last standing roller rinks who have threatened with closure and how a community of thousands battle in a racially charged environment to save an underground subculture. This is United Skates.
Once you go into this skate world, it's a world in its own.
You don't know what to expect. You hear the bass. You step out on the floor and just let it go. As you go across the country, you'll find it's a really thriving rink. It's because they have a really strong African-American skate community.
It was a place where the streets, everybody met up.
Everything was underground at some point in time.
When jazz first came out, everybody was like, okay, wait a minute, I don't know what's going on. You don't understand the culture, you push it away.
The owner told us that they're not going to renew our lease.
This is the pattern. Our skate community is suffering.
What we gonna do now? Where we gonna go?
Black folks, they think you get a lot of them together, it's gonna be trouble.
Sheriff's already out here. And they harassed us the whole time we were there.
We gotta keep fighting.
This is my history. This is my culture. Whatever the situation, we're gonna roll.
Definitely makes you want to put on a pair of roller skates after that. We'll talk more about that film. And of course, let me introduce our last panelist and our moderator for today. Dr. Denise Frazier is our special guest. She's an educator, musician, and interdisciplinary artist from Houston. She's a 2024 MLK Fellow at MIT, and recently she served as assistant director of the New Orleans Center for the Gulf South at Tulane. Frazier has completed an MA and PhD in Latin American Studies at Tulane. And she's studying political social dimensions of hip hop music and performance in early 21st century Cuba and Brazil. She's taught a wide variety of courses, including Intro to African American Studies and Afro-Latinx Studies at Tulane, Southern University of New Orleans, and Xavier University of Louisiana. And we welcome her today. And of course, I want to introduce our moderator for this amazing discussion. Anike Tourse is a multimedia maker with accomplishments both in front of and behind the scenes. She's written for TV series, including One Life to Live and Girlfriends, and is the writer-director of award-winning short film America I Too. Anike is also the writer-director and starring actress in the award-winning narrative feature, which just came out recently, America's Family, and is now available on all major VOD platforms, and soon New Day as well. Anike has penned and performed several solo shows across the country, as well as for the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and she's a playwright of the play No Milk Today, which premiered at Reedsburg, Wisconsin Fermentation Fest. Anike, take it away.
I do want to say before we start, Rodney and Dyana and Tiffany and Denise, it is such a pleasure and an honor to have this conversation with you. You are all doing such remarkable work and just really excited. So I will dive in. Rodney, in Brother to Brother, the opening of the film, we start with this great shot, this pan that's through the subway window from your protagonist, his point of view, Perry, where he is looking out at New York. And I just wondered about these choices that you made and that your cinematographer made to really navigate that space between the historical and the current day.
Thank you for that question. And you know, the film is really a tribute to the LGBT rebellious younger generation within the Harlem Renaissance that I fell in love with, particularly Richard Bruce Nugent. And in many ways, I wanted the script to parallel that love and that chemistry and that respect and that sense of legacy, you know, of chosen family, of hidden queer legacies within the Harlem Renaissance. And yeah, and we felt the need to visually separate those time periods, and we knew that we were going to be using archival footage in spaces to move between the two time periods, and so it was just logical and helpful, and provided a kind of visual shorthand for the two time periods to shoot the Renaissance period in black and white and the contemporary period then when we were shooting in the early 2000s to be in color. And so, yeah, that was a choice that we made.
Denise, the piece that you wrote, where you have professors and students, Black professors and students, and the way they're navigating the experience of being in predominantly white institutions. And then I thought, oh, here's an example of it happening here in this film. And I just wondered about what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, thank you. It's so great to be on this panel with everyone. That piece was written probably about 13 or 14 years ago, and we're seeing a lot of changes in higher education. We just saw this news about Yale going back to standardized testing, and everything related to admissions today, and affirmative action ending, and legacy admissions ending. So there's a lot of change, and I felt like the Harlem Renaissance was also a beautiful time period where there was also a lot of change, and I think especially here in New Orleans, you could argue that we're experiencing an interesting cultural renaissance right now. And that's kind of related to people recovering these genres of music that were previously not ascribed to people of African descent. Like Beyonce just released the Texas Hold'em, country song. And one of the beautiful moments in Rodney's film, I loved that beginning moment where there was pushback that Perry was doing in his class, really standing up for the information that he has researched, that he knows and feels in his soul, or at least that was my perception of that scene in the film where he was schooling his classmates and meeting some resistance, meeting some pushback with some of them. I think those discussions are still continuing as we are continuously learning and unlearning in the education system. And so, and one of the beautiful things about the Harlem Renaissance, I felt like that I learned in my early childhood education was not only the creativity, but this this beautiful protagonist role that people of African descent had culturally, and how valued that was, despite so much other parts of our history that weren't valued in my early education, that hopefully can be valued now, but with critical race theory and other parts of who we are not being accepted in a lot of states, including many states in the South where I live, that is under threat. And so having filmmakers and artists and musicians tell these stories continues to be of high urgency.
Dyana and Tiffany, when I first saw United Skates, within the first, I think, 3 minutes I saw the film, I said, oh my God, please come to New Day, please come to New Day, please come to New Day. And so excited that your film is with New Day now. And I wondered about, I'm sure that the two of you have thought so much about both community and audience, in particular now as you're doing your social impact producing and reaching out to people. And I wondered, as this film largely features an African-American audience, and as the two of you are coming from a different culture, what your thoughts were, how your feelings were, how you, any ways that this might have come up in your relating to your participants, both in the making of the film and in the outreach of the film to the communities now.
Thank you for asking it. It's a very important question. I'm Dyana, one of the director producers of the film. I have brown hair, brown eyes, brown glasses, brown jacket on. I'm a light-skinned Jewish woman. And yes, so I actually care a great deal about who is behind the lens and who is telling what story, and did not want to make this film. And when I was shooting a completely different project, and some of the skaters from this film approached me and asked me if I would come and see what they do. And so I followed them on an overnight bus from New York City, where I was living at the time, down to a very remote area of Washington, outside of Washington, D.C. And there was this roller rink that was at midnight, I think 11, 12 at night, had a line down the block, one in, one out at the door. You could hear the music pumping. It was a scene. And I was clearly the only non-African American there. So I put my camera down. I didn't film anything the entire night, and I just enjoyed myself. It was an amazing, joyous experience. And I met people from all over the country. I met people from Atlanta. I met people from Philly, from New York, from Texas. And I kept saying, how did you all know to be here at this rink in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night? And they kept saying, well, our rinks are closing. We don't have a rink anymore where we are. And so we have to travel further and further to do what we love, what our parents did, what our aunts and uncles did. And so I fell in love with them. I fell in love with the world. And I said, I hope somebody from your community makes this film, and left. And then I started getting message from some of the people I met and the originals, and they said, we'd like you to come to another one in Chicago. And I just kept saying, isn't there someone that you guys want to make this? Like, why me? And they said, no, we actually want somebody outside of our community to tell a story so that you can be our bridge. And so I very hesitantly stepped one foot in. I decided to shoot a short kind of teaser, and then so I did that. I interviewed a few people, cut some stuff together myself, and then I went to the largest roller skate event for this community. It's in Atlanta once a year, Skate-a-thon. It's 4 days. It's like thousands of skaters from all over the country come, and I asked permission to project it at one of the events, and then to openly ask, is this a film that you guys would like to be made? If so, please come, and if not, also no skin in the game, and please come to me after so we can discuss. So I showed the teaser, and people started cheering, they started crying. They say, I got a standing ovation at the end. And I just got rushed, and people were like, you got to meet my uncle so-and-so who lives in Tennessee, and he invented this move, and you got to meet. And so basically I just decided, okay, if I am in this position to be making this film, then I need to constantly be checking myself, constantly be making sure that I am not putting myself in the story at all, but that I am just listening and being a conduit, and letting them be the North Star. And so I really, I used what I could to make the best story that I could out of so many stories that I was being told and so many people I interviewed. And I made myself some rules, like even though I met some highly educated roller skaters who were non-African American, I chose not to include them in the film because it wasn't their story. And I wanted to make sure that the authorities that were telling us the history, that were telling us these facts, were actually the African American community themselves. So so yes, that is the very roundabout way that I ended up making it, and making sure that I used my privilege as a white person to for example, I would show up to a skate night, and there would be police everywhere, and they would stop me and not let me through, and they would say, "What are you doing here? You shouldn't be here." It would happen a lot, and so I asked the skaters in that situation, "What do you want me to say? How can I best serve you in these confrontations with police?" And they said, "Turn it around and ask them why they're asking." And I love that, because it makes them look instantly at their own prejudice, and so, but yes, I had many moments where I was able to talk to the police, to get them to say things, to talk to racist rink owners, to get them to say things that they wouldn't say if I wasn't white. And so for example, there's this rink that would not let Black skaters in to skate, and I'd been told that many times, but every time I would go, they would welcome us in with the skaters and there'd be no issues. So I thought, oh, how are we going to actually see what they feel when I'm not around? And so we got spy cameras, and we had a pen with a camera in it. We had glasses with a camera in it. And we mic'd up our main characters and then pretended not to be there with them, and absolutely filmed them getting kicked off the floor and kicked out of the rink. And they tried to sue us when we put that in the film, but we were able to get it in. The rink owners did.
And how moving that you asked the community's permission throughout the process, and really allowed them to weigh in. That's really beautiful. Tiffany, do you have anything to add now that you're really working as a producer in the film through the process, and now as you're working so much on getting it out and to the target audience?
Yeah, well, my name's Tiffany, pronoun she, her. I am white female wearing black and white striped sweater with gray hair. Also, like everyone else, in front of an orange refresh and reframe background. And I came onto the process a little late, actually. They had done a lot of the filming. Dyana had been working in filming for, I think, 6-7 years before I came in. So I came in late, specifically was drawn to the project because of how many audiences it could touch. I grew up rollerblading, which is very much not the same thing as roller skating, and had my immediate reaction of growing up in North Carolina and loving roller rinks and what that meant for me. But then ultimately, through watching this film and getting to tour with it when it premiered, I learned that we went to premiere at a festival in Vancouver, Canada, and won the audience award. We went to Edina, Minnesota, where my family is, and won an audience award, which are both predominantly older, whiter audiences. But then we went to Bronze Land Festival in Atlanta and won an audience award. And we've screened the film in over 50 countries, and just had this film speak to people across the world, and continues to be screened in both schools and different festivals, and not even festivals as for competition, but just because people want to screen it. At skate nights, people will host a skate night, watch the film, and then go skating afterwards. And I love the idea that we've been able to take this film and speak to such broad audiences, including getting in front of the Congressional Black Caucus, and have people walk away feeling empowered to keep this vibrant culture alive.
Rodney, I read an article in the Boston Globe, and it said, where you made the comment about your own work, saying that you're forced to think about the ways in which what you create, how it affects the culture and the society around you, whether you like it or not. And also any kind of sort of message you might have to emerging artists, emerging filmmakers who are really trying to hone their own voice and to hold on to it and through their own creative process.
Sure. I mean, I think at this, the stage that I was making Brother to Brother, this was pre-Moonlight, pre-Pose, so it wasn't like there were stories about Black LGBT culture anywhere. So, I would talk to people about the Harlem Renaissance, and a lot of film executives just didn't even know what that was. And so to talk to people about like a queer subculture within the Harlem Renaissance, you know, people just it just doesn't compute for people in terms of like commerciality. So, you know, I ultimately got the film made through a lot of grants. You know, just it was through the grant world and public television that this film got made, and it was made for under $1 million. And you know, it was, we had to be very scrappy and very you know, just thrifty but smart about you know what we could do with what little we had, you know, and that was across the board. And you know, so I worked a lot in rehearsal with the actors, and they were willing to come in because they wanted to understand the scenes and understand, you know, what was at the heart of each scene, what I was trying to communicate. And so I worked with each actor in terms of the relationship. So older Bruce and Perry and Jim, the Harlem Renaissance group, and you know, each a few days that we would work out, you know, the emotional arcs of those relationships. And so I just had to you know work with what I had to do something that hadn't been done before. And then, you know, when I showed it at festivals, people would come to me and just cry, you know, and they would say, I've been waiting for this film my entire life. And thank you. Like, thank you. 'Cause, and then that just is just a galvanizing force to continue, you know, when you get that kind of feedback of just people who have not seen themselves and who desperately want something that feels authentic to their experience. And so I'm fortunate to have had that experience more than once. I had that experience again with vision portraits and blind and low vision folks, and not just artists, just in general, just that those communities that I'm a part of, and people that trust me to tell the story and get it right, and just are thus more kind of vulnerable and open, and you feel it in the performances or in the interviews or whatever, and then the audience feels it, and then so it comes full circle when you're presenting it. And then again, it's like just people just want to hold you and they want to just be like, my entire life I've been waiting, thank you. Thank you, that's all I have to say. That's, you know, like, and yet again, it just feels like, you know, you know, you can't not work from a place of deep authenticity and truth, because you feel the need for it so much when you show it. And so that is, you know, what helps me get through every no and every closed door. And so that's kind of what I would say to emerging artists, is just that there are people that need your story, and just don't lose that perspective.
I think it's a great reminder for, I mean, I know there's a lot of filmmakers tuning in today, so not just for emerging, but for all of us to remember. So thank you for that. Denise, on our theme about hidden legacies and hidden Black legacies, and I wondered, what do you think about that in terms of this being, you know, a hidden legacy, and also, you know, the way that roller skating has really been a part of a launching pad to African-American culture? And also, do you think it's going to be a resurgence in hip hop of today?
A lot of beautiful big questions. for a lot of us, roller skating wasn't ever a hidden legacy of Black culture. It was something that was in your neighborhood. I did a little bit of it growing up. I was so bad at it, but there was a roller skating rink in Fifth Ward, Houston, that me and my cousins went to, and I got to watch them do it, and I got to hear all the music that I heard on the hip hop and R&B radio in Houston, 97.9 The Box. So it's kind of like it's hidden in plain sight, because a lot of these artists have gone on to have this commercial success, but they've still been relegated to the hip hop and R&B market. When I used to teach years ago, I would ask my students, now it's not relevant because, this is a whole different generation of people, but I was like, what's the difference between Justin Timberlake and Usher, since you brought up Usher? And I don't know what that is except race. So this idea of, being hidden in plain sight is an issue. Why are certain African descended cultural traditions rising to the surface and others are still considered a subculture? What is it about those cultural references that connect with, segregation? While I was watching United Skates, I was thinking about the swimming pools and a lot of recent literature that has gone out with the segregations in the swimming pools and how these, white racism just shuts down these pools. So it's like, it's okay. It's going to be hot outside and no one's going to enjoy this. No one's going to get some relief in the summertime. And I totally connected that with that scene in your film where they're like, we'll just close them down. And how the music, hip hop music at that time was kind of relegated to very specific markets. It didn't have this big commercial appeal and success that it was, going to have. Once again, it's a legacy that is still there's still a lot of kind of hidden in plain sight battles with that. Even, Jay-Z's little comment about, his wife not getting all of these awards, but never winning album of the year, whereas like Taylor Swift has gotten so many of that. So there's a lot of gatekeeping that is still happening with regards to cultural representation of people of African descent, and how that intersects also with sexuality and with all kinds of other stuff, religion, spirituality. So I think that these are issues that are going to keep coming up as we keep unearthing from under the ground some of the contributions that we as African descended people have had culturally in this community in the United States. So there will be more stories. There's never a lack of stories. It's just making sure that those stories get unearthed.
I'd love to add just on the subject of swimming pools, since you brought it up, that one of the women that we interviewed so rightly said that fake news has existed for a whole lot longer than the term that we use, and that fake news of the previous era was installing fear in white people to be scared of Black people, and that although it wasn't true, that this woman had done all kinds of research on front page articles in newspapers saying that Black people had diseases, saying that a African-American man had raped a white woman. And if you go back, none of those are true. Of course, they are just fake news, but the damage is done because the fear is there, and then white flight makes them too scared to go swimming, too scared to roller skate together, too scared to fill in the blank. And so only able to talk when drunk. I don't know. But I think that there's such damage and such an after effect that happens from fake news. It's so hard to repair that I just wanted to bring that into the current context, because it's so in our face right now with the elections coming up and so much more.
Well, I've really been enjoying this conversation. Thank you so much. And audience, if you've got any questions, please drop them in the chat after I do a quick couple of reminders of things that are happening here at New Day. I will open it up for audience questions. For those of you who would like to know more about the films that we featured, as well as our other collection of films in African American studies, U.S. history, and more, we invite you to visit New Day Film's website, newday.com, to see our diverse collection of films, including Brother to Brother, United Skates, and one of our latest editions, American Santa. And if you are on social media and are inclined to follow us, we are on Facebook, Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, now called X, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and we will be posting updates there as well. And the films featured today are available on New Day, United Skates, and Brother to Brother, and available for license for educational use. And we will drop the links in the chat, as well as any resources and links that we share in the chat today, we will share in a follow-up email. If you are a filmmaker that's interested in joining New Day, the next webinar info session for new filmmakers is on Wednesday, March 6th at 11 a.m. Eastern to find out more about our unique cooperative model. And so with that, I would like to bring back Anike and our panel to answer some questions from the audience.
Danielle Hockman asks about what you guys are working on now. What are your projects that you're working on now? I think all of you could speak to it. And Denise, you too, about what you're working on now in your current research and in your writing.
Thank you. I can just briefly state that I'm working on 3 different projects. One of them is Hidden Figures related about Afro-Creole music, actually, in the Gulf South region. And another project is based on a chemical that has created a toxic plume in Fifth Ward, Houston, called creosote. There's a lot of information that is going around about it. It's a predominantly African descended community, the community of my family. So I'm kind of writing about the history of Fifth Ward and the history of that community. And it's a community undergoing a lot of change. And another project that I'm working on is related to Afrofuturism and cosmology, studying how to create sound compositions with the gravitational waves and the instruments that are being used to measure gravitational waves.
I would just say a couple of film projects that I'm working on. One is a fiction drama that's similar in structure to Brother to Brother and centers on the openly gay jazz musician, composer, Billy Strayhorn, and one of the early jazz pioneers in New Orleans, actually Buddy Bolden, and follows Strayhorn as he is dispatched to write a song about Buddy Bolden for a suite about the history of jazz. And so it follows Strayhorn and his struggles to create, and this deal that he made with Duke Ellington in order to live an openly gay lifestyle. He, took a weekly salary and was not given credit for a lot of the songs that he wrote, such as Take the A Train and Satin Doll. And so it kind of moves between, his process of kind of meeting intimates of Buddy Bolden's and trying to create this song about him and his creative struggle. And then I'm working on a lighter, more personal animated doc. I should say it's a doc fiction hybrid piece about childhood and memory and overcoming grief and joy. And it centers on a trip that my brother and I took when I was 5 and he was 10 to Disney World with my uncle who recently passed. And so it's sort of, a tribute to him and and a wild trip that we took.
Dyana and Tiffany?
Currently, I'm in post-production on a fiction film. I also switched from documentary to fiction, and it is shot in my hometown on the tiny island of Kauai in Hawaii. And it is basically my low-budget Hawaiian version of Get Out, where two white tourists, influencers, come to the islands and do all the things that we can't stand. And Hawaii, it's kind of what would happen if Hawaii could do what it wanted to them.
Any last words, Tiffany?
I'm working on quite a few depressing documentaries, but I'm so excited to hear about all of these and see the projects coming up. Ultimately, I'm working on a project about the broken healthcare system in the USA and trying to challenge that healthcare system and access to proper healthcare and long-term caretaking. So very heavy, but important, you know, bring on the challenges through storytelling, which is how you can best educate people.
Well, I want to absolutely. Well, I want to thank all of you for being here today. Rodney, Dyana, Tiffany, Denise, Anike, for this really just scratching the surface conversation. You know, obviously, there's a lot of food for thought to take back in terms of all of us and how we can help tell more stories that shine a light on these hidden legacies in Black history, whether you are of African descent or you are from another community. I think it's all our responsibilities to illuminate these stories. And I think it's important in the many ways. And for you educators and librarians, filmmakers, and other community members who are watching this and participating in this Zoom, I think it's important that we all band together to make sure these histories are known for future generations. With that, just wanted to tell you very quickly, our next Reframe and Refresh will be March 28th at 2 p.m. and it will be on the power of advocacy in film, and it will feature Melody Miller's film California's Forgotten Children about child trafficking, and Maggie Stockner's film Upstream Downriver about environmental rights and advocacy for water rights. And if you want to mark your calendars for April 25th, we will also have a discussion on new perspectives on Asian and Arab American identity. So stay tuned for that. We are so glad you joined us today and shared your midnight snack with us. We will see you next time at Reframe and Refresh. Goodbye, everybody.